Back in 2020, My Spy was one of those lockdown releases that, desperate for something to take the edge off the tedium of being confined to your homes, aside from our allowed daily walks, which I took full advantage of to hunt Pokemon. It was a fun but unmemorable film, with just enough charm to carry it through. As I settled in to watch this sequel, I was very aware that I had pretty much no memory of that first film. Those were certainly dark times that we seem to have collectively wiped from much of our minds. This sequel, once again, pairs Dave Bautista with Chloe Coleman as JJ, the CIA operative who was assigned to watch over the young girl in the first film, and Chloe, who now aspires to be an agent herself, but as she's entering into adolescence, also has the issue of boys on her mind. One in particular being a fellow student who she dreams about being assigned to as his bodyguard when he becomes a famous singer. JJ, as a result, is finding difficulty in connecting with the now teenage Sophie, and finds that she rejects him as a father figure despite all his best intentions. When a school trip to Italy arises, where the school choir that Sophie is part of are entered into a contest to be performed at the Vatican, JJ tags along to watch over Sophie, as well as the son of his CIA boss David Kim. However, a terrorist plot is playing out around the group, which soon sees suspicions arise around all the parties as a threat to world peace arises. This sequel is pretty much more of the same of the last film, only with an attempt at a grander scale, and much like the first film, it simply becomes just an average piece of escapism that won't leave any lasting impression for good or for bad. Much like the first film, the mess of ideas and lazy plotting holds up purely on the presence of Bautista, who can play comic action to perfection, and the chemistry he has with Coleman's Chloe. Around them, the support cast will either add enjoyment or annoyance, all depending on how you generally feel about Ken Jeong and Kristen Schaal, who play their usual shticks to maximum effect here. Anna Faris is on hand, but lacks any of the old Faris charm and presence, making her pretty much underserved by the material that she's given to work with. And Craig Robinson pops up to, well, be Craig Robinson in a role. All the while, pretty standard action film, playing around the cast, with nary any feel of threat on offer throughout. Immediately forgettable, I struggle to care for the terrorist subplot that was going on. My Spy the Eternal City tries to up the stakes over the first film, but only holds up on the lower stakes of the coming-of-age drama aspect going on with the central cast. Had this been a lockdown again, this would be a nice bit of a diversion, but as we aren't, it just ends up being just another film that joins the deluge of underwhelming streaming action comedies, and it's probably worth skipping. Kate Carter, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, is a meteorologist who used to be a storm chaser, but after a devastating encounter with a tornado saw her lose her close friends, she stepped away from the peril. However, when another of the survivors of the encounter, Javi, played by Anthony Ramos, convinces her to join him and his research team for Storm Par, as they look at modelling how storms start in an attempt to find a way to break them and prevent life-threatening destruction. She finds herself facing up to the trauma of her past. Along the way, other storm chasers are gathered for the thrill and or the science of the outbreak of tornadoes, including hot-headed video blogger Tyler Owens, played by Glenn Powell, aka the Tornado Wrangler, who recklessly drives into storms, seemingly for entertainment. However, Kate soon finds that there is more to Tyler than what the surface level shows, whilst also discovering that Javi is covering up some secrets himself. All the while, the storms rip devastating paths through communities that the groups are trying to help. Much like the first film, Twisters is a spectacle film that's packed with tornado-destructive thrills, which will no doubt please a popcorn-fueled audience. Also, like the first film, what would otherwise be unmemorable and generic blockbuster fare is elevated somewhat by the central cast. In the original, it was Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton who provided the central heart for us to latch onto, and whilst the overall film was average at best, their performances more than picked things up. Not forgetting the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman's Dusty, who stole every moment he had on screen. Here, it is Powell and Edgar-Jones who keep us engaged, with their initial rivalry slowly paving way for a connection between the pair being used as a wonderful showcase of both of their star presences. Tyler's entourage, who planned to record his antics, are no substitute for Seymour Hoffman's Dusty, but they each lend some fun and some more level-headed humanity to the events going on. Twisters is a crowd-pleaser film that delivers exactly what you expect from it. Spectacle and thrills, whilst a little basic on plot, but with a solid core cast that it makes it impossible to not just get swept up with. See it on the biggest screen you can, and just enjoy the thrill ride, even if it's highly unlikely you'll ever care to revisit it again anytime soon. Much like the first film, I can see this ending up being one of those films that you only rewatch when you accidentally stumble upon it whilst changing channels.